Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Thank you very much. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 4, text number 11. The last verse, the one, chapter 4, text 10, spoke of Manmaya Mam Upashrita, the idea of always being absorbed in Krishna and taking shelter in Lord Krishna, and Mad Bhavam Agata, to be in transcendental love, to have transcendental love for Krishna. So this verse, text 11, speaks of Krishna's reciprocation according to the measure of Mam Upashrita of the previous verse. According to the measure of Manmaya, how much one is absorbed in Krishna. Mad Bhavam, how much one has love for Krishna. It also speaks of the measure of the quality of the rasa, of the humor of that love for Krishna. So all of those different aspects of surrender to Krishna, Krishna reciprocates with that person according to that quality, that rasa, that measure of love and that surrender. The interesting thing is that in this verse, Krishna says that his reciprocation to one's surrender or the lack of surrender to Krishna is actually the primary determinant, the primary factor which determines our entire experience of life. Everything. So sometimes people, they dismiss Krishna and Krishna consciousness out of great ignorance, not knowing that this one factor determines their entire experience of life. Everything you will ever experience, all your thoughts, your feelings, your affections, your emotions, your highs and your lows, are all dependent on this one single factor of surrender to Krishna or the lack of it. So therefore, Krishna is actually interwoven into every aspect of our life. And this is the purport of this verse. The verse reads, Ye yatha maam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajami aham mama vartamanu vartante manushya partha sarvasya. So here Krishna is saying, not only my devotee, but every manusya, every human being, sarvasya, in all respects, and all men are subject to this measure. What is this measure? Ye yatha mam prapadyante. How much and in what form and shape and quality surrender we have for Krishna. According to that, Krishna reciprocates, bhajami. He rewards, aham. He personally does this. So it's interesting, this word prapadyante, it obviously means surrender to Krishna, but it also means prapadyante, to throw oneself down at someone's feet. Literally means that, prapadyante. It also means to arrive, to attain, to take refuge, shelter. So prapadyante means according to how much we take shelter of Krishna. Bhajami, Krishna rewards. He reciprocates. He supplies and he honors. He honors us. So the translation reads, as all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pritha. So nobody is exempt. Nobody is exempt. Even if you say, oh, I have nothing to do with Krishna or Krishna consciousness, you're still subject to that law. It's almost like saying, oh, I have nothing to do with gravity. You're still subject to gravity. Saying will not make you exempt. And the other thing is that, so whilst we speak of devotees, that everyone is a devotee who chants Hare Krishna once, what we're learning here, because yayata means there is differences. There are differences of mam upashuta, how much somebody takes shelter of Krishna, how much he loves Krishna, how much he surrenders to Krishna. So they're not equal. There are different kinds of surrender, there are different degrees of surrender, there are different kinds of moods, there are different kinds of loving feelings, and there's different kinds of consciousness. For example, somebody may think of Krishna while watching television. It's not the same as a person who can't think of anything else while he thinks of Krishna. See, if you are able to multitask, sometimes we think multitasking is very good. Can do two things at the same time. But actually, it's a lesser quality than a person who is fully absorbed in only thinking of Krishna. So Krishna reciprocates all of these things in a fitting manner. He doesn't give the same experience to the person who chants his name while watching television as he does to the person who is ananyas chintayantumam, who is exclusively thinking of Krishna, nothing else. And Prabhupada is going to cover in the purport that this kind of surrender to Krishna includes different realizations of Krishna, including the impersonal realization, including Paramatma realization. And it also includes the different methods we adopt to think of Krishna. For example, karma, jnana, yoga, karma yoga, jnana yoga. So all these things Krishna reciprocates. Very, personal, individually, not generic. It's not a group reciprocation, it's an individual reciprocation. And in this, everyone is subject to this treatment. And therefore, it's the only meaningful measure of anyone's life. Because according to our surrender to Krishna, or the lack of it, that's what we will experience from Krishna. Now we may not attribute our experience to Krishna, but you have to understand, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He controls everything, the weather, your body, your mind, everything. So his reciprocation dominates everything you will ever experience, physical, mental, spiritual. So Srila Prabhupada would emphasize the importance of that everyone needs Krishna consciousness. You know, sometimes our heart goes out to people who are suffering bodily, through hunger, through lack of education, through lack of opportunities. And we think we need to equalize. But actually, the living entity is only experiencing everything according to his dealings with Krishna. Us included. Not others, but everyone. Manusha, Partha. Manusha means the whole, full, total, sum total of all human beings. Interestingly, it's human beings, you see, not living beings at this stage. Because human beings have a choice. You can surrender according to your choice. Srila Prabhupada writes, everyone is searching for Krishna in the different aspects of his manifestation. So straight away, Prabhupada, in one sentence, has summarized everything I've said so far. Everyone is searching for Krishna in the different aspects of his manifestations. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is partially realized in his impersonal Brahmajyoti, effulgence, and as the all-pervading Supersoul dwelling within everything, including the particles of atoms. But Krishna is fully realized only by his pure devotees. Consequently, Krishna, in one of these three aspects, is the object of everyone's realization or endeavor. Thus, anyone and everyone is satisfied according to one's desire to have him. Now, this everyone's realization includes people in material concept of life, in the bodily concept of life. We sometimes think, where does people with the material concept of life fit in with Brahma realization, Paramatma and Bhagavan? It's in the Brahma realization. It doesn't mean they're fully Brahma realized, as in spiritually realized. It's the impersonal. For example, when people say, I have a personal relationship with somebody, my father, my mother, my husband, my wife, my child, they don't know the mother, father, the wife, the husband, the child. They know the body. So our experience is impersonal. We don't know the person. So we're limited anyway. We'll discuss that a little later. And if you go back 2 verses before, it's not 2 verses, sorry, just 1 verse before. Vita Rag Bhaya Krodha. So the surrender to Krishna, you have to be free from attachment, fear and anger. That means you can't even surrender to Krishna unless you're free from the material concept of life. Therefore, the material concept of life is a form of impersonal realization. Okay, now Srila Prabhupada speaks of the fact that this reciprocation by Krishna, not only in the material world, it applies in the spiritual world also. The same principle. In the transcendental world also, Krishna reciprocates with his pure devotees in the transcendental attitude, just as the devotee wants him. So, in other words, it's directly in a fitting manner to the mood of every living being. Everyone. Mother Yashoda, the gopis, the cows, the grass, everything, the Jamuna, Krishna reciprocates individually. It's an amazing quality of Krishna, that he is able to reciprocate with every individual person, individually. I mean, that's amazing actually. It's quite amazing. And it's something we're going to learn more and more about Krishna. This amazing thing, that this one person, Eko Pyasau Rachaitam Jagadandako, how he pervades everything, but he also reciprocates with individuals. It's not generic. You see, it's not generic. It's very customized. One devotee may want Krishna as a supreme master, another as his personal friend, another as his son, and still another as his lover. Krishna rewards all the devotees equally, according to the different intensities of love for him. So it's no good saying I'm doing devotional service. The question is, what quality of devotional service? What mood? What intensity? It's not enough to say I'm doing devotional service or I'm doing material activities. Everything is a question of the detail. You know, there's a saying, the devil is in the detail. In other words, the important aspects of your question lie in the detail. In the very detail. Go deep. For example, everyone stands in front of the deities at the time of deity greeting. But is everyone's mood, intensity, consciousness the same? No. So you want to work on those details. And it's not enough to say, well, I have attended deity greeting for the last 30 years, 40 years, every day. That's okay, that's also one detail, actually. But there are many more components. Did you do it when the weather was favorable? Did you do it under great difficulty? Did you do it when you were rich? Did you do it when your clothes were washed? When, you know, what are the details? Every detail matters. Sometimes people think, well, gopis were devotees. Well, they think I can be a, I mean, how difficult is it to put on a sari? Sari was not their qualification of the gopis. It was the intensity. And this feature, this Madh Bhavam, this love for Krishna, is what we have to learn. And Srila Prabhupada is going to devote some of the purport towards this. In the material world, the same reciprocations of feelings are there, and they are equally exchanged by the Lord with different types of worshippers. So here the word equally exchanged doesn't mean Krishna reciprocates with everyone in the same way. It means that he reciprocates with everyone. Nobody's left out. Okay. The pure devotees, both here and in the transcendental abode, associate with him in person and are able to render personal service to the Lord and thus derive transcendental bliss in his loving service. As for those who are impersonalists and who want to commit spiritual suicide by annihilating the individual existence of the living entity, Krishna helps also by absorbing them into his effulgence. So Prabhupada is highlighting, take whoever you like. Krishna is reciprocating with them. From the impersonalist, from the materialist to the devotee. Everyone is reciprocating. He is the one who is arranging for their goal, for the destination. Such impersonalists do not agree to accept the eternal blissful personality of Godhead. Consequently, they cannot relish the bliss of transcendental personal service to the Lord, having extinguished their individuality. So this is referring to the previous purport, where Prabhupada spoke of those people who have fear in spiritual life. They want to extinguish their individuality and personality. So Krishna reciprocates that fear because he wants to extinguish his individuality. So Krishna says, okay, impersonal, absorbed in his impersonal effulgence. Some of them who are not firmly situated even in the impersonal existence return to this material world to exhibit their dormant desires for activities. So these people, they again come back to the material world. So in other words, Prabhupada is trying to go through the entire rainbow. The entire, all the living entities, all the humans, from materialist, gross materialist to the pure devotee. And he's covering how Krishna reciprocates with each and every one of them. For those who are fruitive workers, the Lord awards the desired results of the prescribed duties as the Yajneshwar. And those who are yogis seeking mystic powers are awarded such powers. In other words, everyone is dependent for success upon His mercy alone. That's like the concluding phrase here. And all kinds of spiritual processes are but different degrees of success on the same path. Mama vartama anuvartate. Now Prabhupada is speaking of the word vartama, mama vart, my path. In other words, nobody is able to live a path separate from the one Krishna is giving. Nobody is able to live an independent life and chalk out something with his own rules and with his own laws. He's still subject, like I gave the example of gravity. You may go to North India, you may go to South, you may go in the basement, you may go on a building high up. You're still under the subject to gravity. There is no option you have where you say, I will not be subject to gravity. It's a mundane example. So Krishna, every living entity, all over the universe, every planet, millions of years ago, today, and million years in the future, will always be subject to His path. Everyone will, that is what we will get. That is what we will experience. Mama vartama anuvartante. So really, if you think about this carefully, it means I should select the good path. In other words, I'm in Krishna's, but I should select that variable, that option, which is going to be in my interest. There's no escaping the fact that Krishna will reciprocate with your feelings. For example, if you want to be deceptive, you want to be a cheater, Krishna will reciprocate. And you will be cheated. And you will be deceived. Because that is what you want. And that is what you will get. So the intelligent human being, he says, well, let me be very honest with Krishna. Let me be very sincere. Let me aspire for the genuine experience. I don't want a deceptive experience. I don't want an illusionary experience. I don't want to cheat, because I will be cheated. So Prabhupada carries on, unless therefore one comes to the highest perfection of Krishna consciousness, all attempts remain imperfect, as is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Here Srila Prabhupada quotes the verse from the Bhagavatam, Akama sarvakamo va mokshakam udharati tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Whether one is without desire, or his desire is evolved through results, or is after liberation, one should, with all efforts, try to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead for complete perfection, culminating in Krishna consciousness. Now here the point is being made that since everyone is subject to reciprocation from Krishna, why not try for full surrender to Krishna? Why should I get a partial reward? Why not get the full benefit? So the full benefit lies in being fully surrendered. Because it's a measure of surrender, you see. In other words, more you surrender, the more you benefit. The less you surrender, the less the benefit. In other words, we secure no benefit by doing partial surrender. So the question is now how to do it. How to surrender. So now Krishna actually, it's interesting, this is very interesting. this process of surrender, first Krishna gives a general rule that everyone follows my path. Now he says, it's interesting, this is very interesting link. This very next link is text 12. That he speaks of the different kinds of surrender that do not include Krishna. That have nothing to do with Krishna. So this is the verse. He says here, Kankshanta karmanam siddhim yajanta iha devata shipram hi manushe loke siddhir bhavati karmaja. Because somebody can say, well, I don't worship Krishna. I worship Santoshi Ma, I worship Shivji, or I worship Jehovah and other, so on and so forth. Or I worship no one. I worship the dollar bill. So all these different variations of that. But right now, this verse is speaking of the devatas. Now, Krishna is going to mention that again, it's my path everyone is following. But when they surrender to the devatas, they get the desires they hoped for very quickly. And there's one interesting link. I just want to mention the link because you might forget you might lose the connection. We're on text 12. Text 14, Krishna is going to mention, though they get the benefit, there's no purification. Okay. Just remember that. Catch that when we come to text 14. It won't be today, it'll be next week. I'm not speaking tomorrow. So you'll have to remember it for 1 week. That means, though you get the result, you don't get the purification. And the purification means freedom from bondage. Remember that. Purification means freedom from bondage. It's made explicit by Lord Krishna in text 14. Kankshanta karmanam siddhim yajanta iha devata shipram hi manushe loke siddhir bhavati karma ja. Men in this world desire success in fruitive activities, and therefore they worship the demigods. Quickly, of course, men get results from fruitive work in this world. Now, Prabhupada is going to include important men amongst the devatas in the purport, that by kowtowing or worshipping a man in this world, by flattering, by bribing, you may get also. Isn't it why they give a suitcase to a politician? They say, does this belong to you? No, it doesn't belong to us. That's how you worship men with some suitcase or envelope. This is for you. So there is a similar thing going on with the demigods, devatas. But the interesting word here is Iha Devata. Iha means devatas of Iha, of this place, of the material world. And then it mentions Loke Siddhi. Loke means in this material world again. So entities of this world are worshipping for benefits in this world. You see? This is what's going on here. Men in this world desiring success in this world. So they worship the demigods. Okay, so now Prabhupada first of all explains that demigods doesn't mean God. There is a great misconception about gods or demigods of this material world. And men of less intelligence, although passing as great scholars, take these demigods to be various forms of the Supreme Lord. So that's a misconception. It's a mistake. Actually, the demigods are not different forms of God, but they are God's different parts and parcels. God is one, and the parts and parcels are many. The Vedas say, Nitya Nityanam, God is one. Ishvara Parama Krishna, the Supreme God is one. So, Srila Prabhupada, he knows how to get the point across. God is one. This is in different ways. Get it in your head. God is one. He's never two. is one. It goes back to our discussion last week that even though there is Nanda Nandana Krishna and Vasudev Krishna, they are one, they're not two. One. One person, two different leelas, but one person. There's not more than one God. The Supreme God is one, Krishna, and the demigods are delegated with powers to manage this material world. So Prabhupada explains a little bit more. Anyone who thinks that God and the demigods are on the same level is called an atheist. In other words, is not only called an atheist, he is an atheist, or Pashandi. That's the definition of an atheist. Someone who cannot distinguish between, thanks to one of our listeners here, repeatedly saying Sai Baba is not God. Yes, so he is not God. There is only one God. And if you think a person who is not God is God, then you are an atheist. That's the definition of an atheist. So what does this mean? It means India is a land of atheists now, because there is so much, so many people. So you can give up this pride that India is the land of, holy, because it is going down very, very fast, as being proven by the media. Even great demigods like Brahma and Shiva cannot be compared to the Supreme Lord. In fact, the Lord is worshipped by demigods such as Brahma and Shiva. And this is a quotation from the Bhagavatam, Shiva Virinchi Nutam. Nutam means to praise. So Brahma and Shiva, they are doing Nutam to Krishna. They're worshipping Krishna. Yet curiously enough, there are many human leaders who are worshipped by foolish men under the misunderstanding of anthropomorphism or zoomorphism. So I'll explain this. So because an atheist, you see, he sees no objection why Sai Baba can't be God. Because he's thinking, you're God, the rat is God, everyone is God, except God. It's very interesting. Materialists, they have this wonderful philosophy where God in the temple is not God, but everyone else is God. This is such, to borrow Srila Prabhupada's words, rascals. There is no redeeming quality of these people. They're just plain, sinful, evil, lowest of the low living beings. Purposely define the Supreme Personality of God by calling everyone else God except God Himself. This is what kind of very, rascal people we are surrounded by, and therefore you should be wise and cautious about your dealings with everyone. So these people, they'll worship anyone. And because they have this idea of anthropomorphism, that means there is really no God, so you can worship any man. Anthropomorphic. In other words, you're thinking God is a figment of man's imagination, or He's like me. You superimpose. You don't understand that I'm actually like Him. I did not create God. God has created everything. So this is genuinely a definition of an atheist. So they assign human traits to God, and therefore they are called anthropomorphists. They don't believe in Shastra. They don't believe that there is one personality, Nityo Nityanam. There is one person who is unique amongst everybody else. But Narayan, Vishnu or Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, does not belong to this world. He is above or transcendental to material creation. Even Sripad Shankaracharya, the leader of the impersonalists, maintains that Narayan or Krishna is beyond this material creation. So that means Krishna is neither a material being, ordinary person, nor is he an imagination. However, foolish people worship the demigods because they want immediate results. So this is the problem. Everyone is got this vested desire to simply enjoy bodily life. And they see, what has Krishna got to do with it? I'm after the dollar, so Krishna is not going to give me the dollar. And if a magician can give me some gold, some ashes, blessing, that make me successful, get the dollar, I'll worship him. So you see, they're not worshiping God, they're worshiping the material benefits of life. That's their goal. That's their desire. So they're not even in the spiritual life. They don't care, they don't understand spiritual as different from matter. For them, everything is matter. So they get results, but do not know that results obtained are temporary. That's from the demigods or from worshipping great people in this world. The intelligent person is in Krishna consciousness. He has no need to worship paltry demigods for immediate temporary benefit. So that means a person in Krishna consciousness, if you want full surrender to Krishna and you want the full benefit of Krishna, you should not be diverted by temporary material bodily benefits. That's important. Vairagya vidya nija bhakti yoga shikshartham eka purusha purana. You must have a bhakti which is unmotivated by material desires. The demigods of this material world, as well as their worshippers, will vanish with the annihilation of this material world. Remember, I said iha devata, iha, this world. The boons of the demigods are material and temporary. Both the material worlds and their inhabitants, including the demigods and their worshippers, are bubbles in the cosmic ocean. This idea of cosmic ocean means the cosmic ocean of time. Cosmic ocean of time. In this world, however, human society is mad after temporary things, such as the material opulence of possessing land, family, and enjoyable paraphernalia. And that's what we're seeing today. Why people think somebody is God? Not because they understand the subject of God, only because they're mad after money, after land, after material things. So they have no concept of spiritual or God. So now Prabhupada speaks of demigods or powerful men. So then he says, to achieve such temporary things, people worship the demigods or powerful men in human society. Then he says, kowtowing to the so-called leaders or big guns in order to achieve temporary boons, and they indeed achieve such things. Isn't it when you want success, a position, you need a letter of recommendation. It's very important. So you go and you please the person who can give you that letter of recommendation to get that post. So this is a materialist life. He doesn't have the sense of God in his life. Such foolish men are not interested in Krishna consciousness for the permanent solution to the hardships of material existence. They are after sense enjoyment, and to get a little facility for sense enjoyment, they are attracted to worship other empowered living entities. This verse indicates that such people are rarely interested in Krishna consciousness. They are mostly interested in material enjoyment, and therefore they worship some powerful living entity. Okay, now I have one reference from Prabhupada's lecture in New Vrindavan, 1974. So your problem is eternal life. Why you should be engaged in Iha Devata? Iha Devata means Iha will be finished. Your devata will be finished. You will be finished. Everything will be finished. But your problem is how to come to the eternal point. So, thank you very much. Are there any questions?